Okay, so good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening. I'm going to talk about the AGL roadmap update and use roadmap and UCB update, Unified Code Base update. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the community manager for Automotive Grade Linux, and I can be reached at that email address or on Twitter. So going back to the deep dark recesses of history, where Dan showed the previous names of all the fishes. If we go back to 2015 timeframe, we were using Tizen IVI as our base source code. We were basically relying on a lot of other people to build our code, and the AGL advisory board made the decision at that time to create what we call the unified code base, which would take the best pieces of Tizen IVI plus the code that Genevieve had developed, and whatever code we had developed within AGL, and create the unified code base. And this was first announced at CES in 2016, and the first release, Agile Albacore, came out in that time frame. But like Dan said, we're now 13 releases in. So really now we're unifying the best open source, the best of all open source code. Tizen IVI is long gone, but really focusing on reducing fragmentation, innovation, and new features. And we're now integrating things like Yocto, Open Embedded, and Systemd, Pipewire, Jenkins, the web app manager that we get from WebOS Open Source Edition. We're using Jenkins for CI. We have a lot of AGL services that are automotive specific, and we have AGL reference apps that we've really been building upon over the years that are written in mostly written in QML and Qt. And we've recently added Flutter as well. So now that you have a choice of writing Flutter or web apps or native Qt apps as you develop your AGL applications. But I think this year really is a year of transformation or transition within the project. I'm showing the top 10 list that the steering committee for AGL every year goes through an exercise where we gather input from all of the expert groups as well as the system architecture team, and the steering committee rates and ranks each of those features, and we come up with a kind of a top 10 prioritization list for the year. And we use that to figure out what we're going to work on, what different companies who may have people working on the project will work on, and where we have funding from that's allocated from the advisory board, is we use this as our roadmap for allocating that funding. And you can see from in 2021, we added Flutter. We have the Flutter embedder, and I'll talk about that. I'm going to be presenting the IVI expert group update in a few minutes after this. But that's been added for the Magic Marlin release, which just came out. We've now got VirtIO enabled across the UCB. We've made a lot of good progress, and we're continuing to make good progress this year towards a common device interface within our virtualization expert group. Reference hardware continues to come along, especially on the software side. We've got DRM sharing in the instrument cluster profile, and we've made a lot of updates to the application framework that I'll talk about in a few minutes. And I think Daniel Stone will have some updates later. So what's going on now is the steering committee is finishing up this exercise for 2022. I was hoping to be able to share the updated 2022 list with you this week, but right now we're still in progress of doing that rating and ranking. And in fact, tonight my time, it's 2:30 in the morning here now, but tonight my time we'll be having a steering committee meeting, and hopefully we'll get to finalize this list, and I can share it with you next time we get together. So As we look at how AGL has evolved and transformed over the years, we've invested in automotive components that are not available anywhere else. But in the meantime, as we've developed these components that we have, we've continued to evaluate open source technologies to find the software that's best in class for our automotive use cases. And you can see here, this diagram attempts to show where we started off. Say, for example, for audio, we were using Pipewire, then we switched to, not Pipewire, Pulse Audio, then we created the AGL Advanced Audio Agent, or 4A, and then we saw an opportunity to work with the Pipewire community and drive some automotive use cases into the Pipewire and Wire Plumber communities. And so instead of AGL rolling our own our own audio open source package, we're now using Pipewire and Wire Plumber. And that's kind of the evolution. You're seeing us move from some of the technologies where we've rolled our own, or some of the technologies that we started off on that maybe were a little less mature, and we're moving into more mature technologies and trying to avoid the situation where we're doing a one-off application framework or audio manager or whatever the case might be. So this year, we'll see us transition the reference apps. Last year, we removed the application framework, the AGL application framework that we were maintaining on our own, and we'd gotten a lot of feedback from people that it was a little difficult to use, and that was really something that was going to be hard for us to maintain going forward. So we removed that application framework, and we're transitioning to using systemd for app management, and we created a new app launcher and a new home screen. We're investigating, best in class IPC technologies where WebSockets may not make sense any longer, because that was kind of the mandatory technology we were using with the binders and bindings. And like Dan said, we're going to be replacing our Qt reference apps with Flutter and with web apps over the next, as we continue to go through this year. And we've already got some of those in place in the Marlin release, and we'll continue to evolve those in Needlefish as we go forward. So release planning as we go through this year. This is the overall schedule. These slides I already uploaded to the schedule site, so you can download these slides. You can always get the latest on our schedule from our wiki page there. In fact, I just updated the schedules yesterday as part of my getting ready for this presentation. So here's kind of the message for Lucky Lamprey. Essentially becomes our de facto long-term support. So if you have legacy apps that you've created with the old AGL application framework, we'll continue to support Lucky Lamprey with patch updates through at least the end of this year. We've already been doing that for 7 or 8 months now. Basically, as the Yocto project continues to generate new releases of the Dunfell branch, we'll continue to create new versions of AGL. I should have updated this, that we actually did a 12.1.2 release just a week or so ago, using the Yocto project 3.1.15. So basically, as the new Dunfell releases get updated, we will continue to put out new Lamprey releases about 2 weeks after that. So that's kind of my guess as the schedule work. We're just gonna follow the Yocto project schedule as they do their releases. So right now, 12.1.3 would be projected to come out on May 20th. So Magic Marlin, like Dan said, we just released this at the end of March. We're continuing to use Dunfell, but the reason we're saying that Lamprey will be our more long-term, medium-term support version of AGL is we did remove the AGL application framework, and replace that with some more upstream components, and we're going to continue to evolve the application lifecycle and other parts of that app framework through Needlefish and Octopus coming up this year. And what that means is because we removed the application framework, our AGL automotive services essentially broke because we no longer had that binder and binding support. We've been basically reinstating those services as we've been going along. So at the end of the day, the Qt demo apps that we have are less functional than they were with Lamprey. I believe they all now come up, but there may be stub functionality behind them at this point. And if you go to the release notes, which I have a link to, you'll get a better feeling for exactly which applications work and which applications do not work. The web app manager is functional. It does work. Not all of the web apps that we used to have running are currently running. We're looking at getting some more of those fixed in the next update of Marlin. We updated to the Chromium version 87, and our friends at AGL will be giving us a presentation on what's been going on there, but in a little bit. But basically, it'll be easier for us going forward to continue to update Chromium in a faster manner. So we actually expect that in the Marlin 13.0.1 release, we will see Chromium 91 come out. So we'll be able to basically be faster followers of the Chromium versions than we have been in the past, and we hope to nearly catch up with the Chromium tree as we go along. We have the initial version of the Flutter embedder integrated that we got from Toyota, although there's no functional apps yet at this point. Pipewire and WirePlumber were updated to, I put nearly the latest. They were the latest when we did the integration, but they continue to evolve. And we did a lot of instrument cluster updates. So we've got a multi-container version of instrument cluster with instrument cluster and IVI available in different containers. We did some work with the sound manager, and we've got the instrument cluster service framework. Yamaguchi-san and Kurakawa-san will give us an update on the work in the instrument cluster expert group in the next few minutes as well. So this is the latest plan for Marlin patch releases. Again, you can get that on the wiki page. So, see where I am on time here. Okay, so Needlefish is coming out the plan for Needlefish is to come out in July. We'll be using the Kirkstone branch of Yocto. So this is their next the new Yocto LTS that's been announced. It's planned to be released at the end of, I think it's actually in May now, the final release. They're now calling that, instead of 3.5, they're calling that 4.0. But we get a lot of really cool features as part of that update, including PR server, hash equivalency, Kubernetes. Jan Simon will go over, I think, a lot of this in the CIOT update that'll be coming next after me. Kind of what's going on with the new versions of of Yocto. We have App Framework and IPC that are going to continue to evolve and be ready for the new reference apps that we've got. Flutter will continue to evolve. WAM again will continue to be updated. We'll get a version 9x version of Chromium, and we'll be switching from SMAC to we have already deprecated SMAC, and we'll be switching to SC Linux and enabling that in permissive mode for Needlefish. So again, here's the schedule with our milestone releases that are upcoming in May and June and into July. So Optimistic Octopus, the plan is we will use Needlefish as the basis for starting our CES demo work. So for CES 2023, We'd like to have Flutter apps, as our reference apps that we show during CES, and we would like to make those available for people to download and use in the Octopus release. We'll be moving to SE Linux in a non-permissive mode, hopefully, but we are looking for a donation of the rules for that. So anybody who's listening, if you're an OEM or a tier one or anybody who's been using SE Linux and you have a set of rules you'd like to donate and help us integrate, we'd be happy to listen to you and happy to work with you and get that into AGL. Instrument cluster will hopefully be production ready. But yeah, stay tuned on Octopus and the exact feature set as we continue to work through this year. So that's the schedule there. That's, again, available on the wiki. And really, like Dan already said, the next face-to-face workshop was announced. It'll be taking place May 17th through 19th in Berlin. There's also a virtual option available. We'll be running it more like we used to run the face-to-face meetings, with a camera in the room and people being able to participate in person. We pioneered the thing called hybrid meetings before anybody called it a hybrid meeting, long before COVID. You can sign up on the wiki. You can also see the requirements for that Mercedes has for participating, including getting vaccinated and testing on site and things like that. But we're really excited about this. There's a large population of automotive developers in the Berlin area that are planning to attend. We should be getting participation from Mercedes and Volkswagen. Amazon is in that area. Not Virtual Open Systems, Open Synergy is in that area. So and we have other companies that are in Europe that plan to fly in as well. So really looking forward to seeing everybody again. It's going to be really cool, and so hopefully we'll see you next month in Berlin. So bottom line, AGL will continue to evolve to embrace the best of open source. We'll continue to take more advantage of what's available upstream. Our mantra has always been code first and upstream first. But again, looking at as much as possible, eliminating those cases where AGL is doing, rolling their own, where there's already a community that exists, and we can work with that community to extend their use cases into automotive. So we'll be hearing from the Elisa folks later on about how we're working with them and with some other communities that are involved with Elisa. But we've already been doing that with Yocto and Open Embedded for many years. Pipewire and Wireplumber for the last few years. Weston and Wayland, and now Flutter, with Toyota and other companies working on the Flutter embedder. So the rest of this is really kind of more background information for everybody. Lots of links on where to find things like documentation and the wiki and Jira, how to find release notes and pre-built binaries and the source code, and our Garrett and Git mirrors. And just to remind everybody, we do have a weekly call on Tuesdays. Anybody can call in, ask any questions, work through any problems you might have. We've also got an IRC channel, #automotive, on Libera Chat or Libera Chat. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. And we do have a mailing list, an AGL mailing list that's pretty active. So thank you, everybody. And I'll hand it back to Dan.